Okay, yeah, thanks everybody. I'm here for WANDERSONG, but we also did Jetomero, which is part of the arcade as well. A little bit about myself and my company. I run a Shell in the Pit audio out of Vancouver. These are a few of the games we've worked on, though not all of them. Our website's just out of date. And here's my team. Here's my team. So I'm Gordon. I do the music and kind of run the company. I also do sound design, but I kind of have not been able to be as hands-on as I like to be because there's too much to do. Em Halberstadt's one of our main sound designers. She just finished up Night in the Woods with Adam and Finji and Infinite Fall. And then Joey Van Alten's our sound designer, and we got Chris Tamik, who's actually making our own audio tool for Unity called Muna, which is just kind of for our projects because I'm a control freak and had a terrible time with Fantastic Contraption and the third-party middle tours we were using. So I decided we'd roll our own. So here with WANDERSONG, I'm glad we got some nitty-gritty audio talks because mine's not. Adam told me to do something that was not a GDC talk, so this is the only place I get to talk about this just weird thing that's been on my mind for a while. That's more because I'm not as hands-on these days. I have to be. I'm just a lot more interested in the whole development process, and because we've worked on a few dozen games now, that's just what's on my mind a lot more is development in general. But I still want to watch a WANDERSONG trailer because I really like it. And it does tie directly into like some of the themes. No autoplay. Thanks. And then we'll watch a little bit of the Jetomero one as well, because I've realized they're both like kind of tying in with what I want. So I didn't do the music for Jetomero. Gabriel Koenig, the developer, did the music. It's like one of the best soundtracks of last year, I think, or this year. I have a bunch of CDs if people want them. Just come up and ask. It's so good. So what both these games have in common the thread that I've been kind of on, that I'm sort of applying directly to sort of a life philosophy and development philosophy, is this kind of lighthearted apocalypse. Like WANDERSONG is this brightly colored game. It's very upbeat, but it is about the end of the world. Which is, if you pay attention to the trailer, a lot of the dialogue coming from the characters and stuff is like, this town sucks, things are depressing, but you're going for it anyway. And same with Jet O'Maro, it's like this sort of bad scene, I guess, but it's just, you gotta try, man. So Adam told me not to make a presentation, but I made one anyways. If I go to slide mode, is it going to work? Where's present? Where's present? Top right. My right? Stage right? Where the hell is it? There we go. Sorry. I kind of go blind when I'm nervous. Okay, this doesn't work because I can't see it anyway. You'll just get my view. You'll get my view. So, what I learned about game development from reading the Wikipedia article on Taoism, and how other people, I think, should also read the Wikipedia article on Taoism. So, Greg and I do something called WANDERSONG Wednesdays. We get together every Wednesday. He comes over, and I do music. He works on the game stuff. Sometimes we barely talk at all, but it's just nice having the developer over to hang out, and we get to jam on ideas and stuff. And we always go out for Indian food on the corner. And there's a Taoist temple like right by where I live. I hadn't really thought much about it, but Greg was saying he wants one of the acts in the game to kind of have this feel, so we go just look at it, kind of stare at it from the outside, too nervous to poke our heads in. And then on the way home, or I was going downtown, Greg was going home, I got the bus to the SkyTrain station, and just on the bus, I started reading about Taoism because we were just staring at the temple, and I just felt better from reading an Wikipedia article. The past, I don't know, 5 years of my life has been working on indie games, like many at a time, up to 18 at once, I think, by myself before I'd hired anyone, and it's just been this really intense battle a lot of the time, and I'm kind of sick of this very Western idea of that every day is this battle that you have to win. And it seems to me, according to the Wikipedia article, and I did more reading, I'm just exaggerating, but that like Taoism is kind of this opposite, and it's this like leaning back approach, and it's this flow of the universe kind of thing. You're supposed to you still wind up doing a lot of the same stuff, but I feel like having a different mindset about it makes things a lot easier. And it also ties into, like, the idea of flow, and I'm sure everyone in the room has experienced this, where you're working at something you're good at, and the hours fly by, and that should be a thing that we kind of appreciate a lot. So this Wu Wei, it's this idea of effortless work, where you get good at something to a point where you don't really have to think about it that much anymore. And so with WANDERSONG, we're a 3-person team, and this game is huge, and Greg is like a freak. And Greg doesn't endorse this talk, by the way. I don't think he cares about Taoism at all, but I think both Greg and Gabriel Koenig, who I work with on these games, are accidental Taoist masters. From reading the Wikipedia article, I've derived this. So we're a 3-person team working on this game that's going to be, I don't know, 15, 20 hours long. The amount of content is insane. That's going to be the longest soundtrack I've ever made by manyfold. I've already done 60 songs for it. I expect to do another 60 before we're out, or 50. It'll be over 100 tracks. And Greg is doing everything else. Greg's doing art, programming, systems. He made us a middleware tool for GameMaker, because GameMaker doesn't work really with any middleware tools. And it's by far the best. It's the most complex audio system game makers has ever seen. And usually working on a game, there's a lot of repetition, and so I can start building systems for here's how the asset rollout's going to go. Here's our processing chains. Here's how we're going to streamline implementation. So, like for other games, we're doing a game called The American Dream, which is a VR game where you have guns for hands and have to do your daily life with guns for hands. And VR games just require like shitloads of assets. So we made a system that automatically imports things that are named a certain way. So my usual way of thinking is really like banking on efficiency and trying to get a lot done as efficiently as possible. And that's simply not. We can't do it with WANDERSONG. Nothing repeats. Like if you learn a puzzle in Act 1, it's not going to have any bearing on whether you can do a puzzle in Act 6. None of the mechanics repeat. It's just this long, very content-heavy thing. And I think the only way I can have mentally handle it is taking a much more lean-back approach, which is still doing a lot of work, but not adding pressure to my life. So I'm gonna dissect this probably very common phrase from the Tao Te Ching, which I just think is pretty neat, though, and go over how I think these can actually apply to game development. So fill your bowl to the brim, and it will spill. Keep sharpening your knife, and it will blunt. Chase after money and security, and your heart will never unclench. I think we all know about that one. Care about people's approval, and you will be their prisoner. Do your work, then step back is the only path to serenity. And something I feel like Greg is really good at is this doing your work and then stepping back. And that also really applies to working with other people, particularly contractors, is that we have to stop being so finicky all the time. Just chill out. So I'm going to be very quick with these. Fill your bowl to the brim and it will not spill, and it will spill. Don't overscope your game. It's just know how big your bowl is when you set out, and it's the hardest thing to ever really measure. But I do work with developers that don't overscope, and they're happier people. Keep sharpening your knife, and it will blunt. I think it's important, and Greg is a master at this, and we've gotten really good at doing this together, is stop tweaking things if you don't know what you're tweaking towards. I've worked on lots of games that do a lot of tweaking, and it doesn't help as much as you think it does a lot of the time. Especially if something's already pretty good and you're just tweaking it because you think it could be better, but you don't know how it could be better, it's adding stress and it's making your life worse, and might not make your art better in any way. Chase after money and security, and your heart will never unclench. Don't make games just for money. Make games to be like, hopefully games make money. That should be part of the plan, but it shouldn't be all there is to it. Care about people's approval, and you will be their prisoner. Don't read the YouTube comments unless you can handle it. So yeah, do your work, step back. It's the only path to serenity. So for me, I'll finish a song or finish a piece of sound design or finish mixing a trailer, and I no longer, it used to take me a lot longer to do things. Obviously I've gotten better at stuff, but saying something's done it's okay now. A lot of us as artists, I think we have a real hard time saying when something is done, and finished is always better than perfect. Because if it's never finished, no one ever sees it. So being able to say when something's done is just a nice thing, which I think probably comes with experience, and maybe it's part of this whole Taoist mastery thing. Never put, this is also from the Tao Te Ching, never put VO in your game if you can't afford professional VO. It'll ruin your game. he or she who argues over which DAW is best will never know happiness. And that's actually all I had. It was pretty short. But happy to answer any questions about any of our games that we've worked on. I can put them back up here.
Yeah, have you got any questions for Gordon? I feel like we're all a little bit wiser. Here we go.
Do you have any cool little practices that you do that help facilitate those ideas? Like, you know, things like that?
Yeah.
Reads Wikipedia articles.
Yeah, well, I read that one Wikipedia article every day for 45 minutes. No, I go on a lot of walks. I get away from my technology. That's my poor man's meditation, is getting rid of my phone and getting by myself for an hour whenever I can, which is definitely not as much as I should. But it helps organize my thoughts. I'm pretty bad at organizing my thoughts in general, so that helps.
One up here.
Yeah. I frequent video game music forums for people who just do it for fun. And we get a lot of game devs that come in all the time who approach people to do work, and they're kind of like, I want you to do this work as kind of like a craftsman, you know, like build me a chair, while seeing what kind of chairs they build. How do you feel like your own personal touches make it into a game, even though it's not necessarily like something you would do if you were making music for fun or whatever?
Well, at the end of the day, it is a job. So it varies from contract to contract for sure. I do like a developer with either clarity of vision that they can like enunciate well, or else I either prefer folks to have clarity of vision or else a long leash for us. Because if they have no clarity of vision, but there is a specific thing they want and they don't know what it is, that can be very painful. So as far as my personal touch being in things, it's just innate. That's probably just gonna be what happens. And I always make sure before we work with anyone that they know they're familiar with the work that we do, and that what we do is something they like, and that we can just steer it in a certain direction to be more like what they want. Because obviously we don't just want like the sound from Night in the Woods and artsy sci-fi game, right? But that the aesthetic flavor is something that they like, and that we think will match in that way.
You mentioned that you had a more hands-off role nowadays as before, where you were doing pretty much all the work.
Yeah, just with sound design. I do tons of music now, but
okay.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel like you have to catch yourself from being like a micromanager, like in terms of like just letting the people that work with you do their thing and not intrude, just because, I don't know, you might still have that tendency to like want things a certain way or not?
At the beginning, a little bit, but honestly, I hate micromanagement, and I hired people so that I wouldn't have to do all that, right? So I just spent a long time hiring people that I trust, and I only manage when I'm asked to, basically. So it depends from person to person, like if people want help organizing their tasks and stuff, then I do it, but otherwise I'm completely hands off. Em did Night in the Woods almost completely on her own. I just did some work on it when she had to go to a wedding. Other than that, very much. Yeah, you got to trust that they can communicate with the developers and that they are aesthetically. I hire people that don't do sound design the way that I would do it, but that do sound design the way like that I like, and that I think developers will like too.
Everybody, please give Gordon a warm round of applause.
Thanks.
Thank you.